I can hear you.
All right. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Topics with Mr. Javadi. Today, what a blessing. You're actually getting to hear two teachers. So, me, the former teacher, and of course, Gary, the former teacher. We both retired that not that long ago. I'll let him, this is Gary Nelson, by the way. I'll let him talk about himself a little bit. But we both spent some time working with the indigenous. And so we want to concentrate on that today. And then we'll do a second show later about teaching in general and things that go with that. But today we're just going to focus on, in my case, the Navajo culture, his case as well. We'll just see what we can share with you about that experience. So, Gary, why don't you, first of all, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Payman. Nice to be here.
Uh, Tell us a little bit about your background and your degree and all of that stuff, and how you began working with the indigenous.
Okay, I grew up in Minnesota and got drafted into the Army. And then when I got out, I worked for a few years, and then I went to University of Wyoming and got a degree in elementary education. And I didn't get a job right away, so I worked for a few more years. And in 1984, I was hired at Whitehorse Day School, and it's on the Cheyenne River Sioux Reservation near Eagle Butte in the little community of Whitehorse. And
In
I
South
taught there
Dakota, right?
in South Dakota. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I taught there for 6 years and had a great time. It was very tough at first I was a new teacher. And when I got there, the students were so tough. They had literally run off two teachers before I got there. I mean, they had run them off. They were just downright, and they had teacher blood in their mouth and they wanted some more. And man, it was rough. And so it took about 2 years to get them to figure out that I wasn't leaving. And
Hmm.
once we got that figured out, we actually had a pretty good classroom and some good experiences.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Um, I myself, I got my bachelor's from University of Northern Colorado. You now live in Kansas. I live in Colorado.
Yes.
But I got my degree from UNC in Greeley. And then later I got my teaching degree. And then later I got my master's degree. But that's all just the academic side of it, the qualification aspect of it. After I got my teaching degree, it was 1991, so it was before my master's actually. In 1991, I just started looking for jobs. Hadn't taught formally yet, so I got hired in Ganado, Arizona. Went there, and that's the Navajo Nation. Spent 6 years there, and I also spent 1 year at Parker, Arizona, where we had Mojave, Hopi, and Navajo students, as well as Hispanic and Anglo students. So I was in Parker. You could say that in Parker, I also got to continue my work with the indigenous, but it was mostly in Ganado. And that's where I met you. And it was in 1991, I believe. Man,
Yeah,
where does the time go? I mean,
I know.
I
And
remember that. I remember that very first day when I met you. Go ahead.
I remember the first time we met was the Episcopal Church had like a welcome meeting for new teachers and stuff. And I went there and there you were. And I remember that church had that bright red door.
Yeah.
And it was just, anyway, it became so we've been friends now for what, 34 years? So,
Ever since we've kept in touch, yeah. So it's been
yeah,
wonderful. But
yeah,
I really kind of tribute, I give credit to that experience because it was a wonderful experience. And
yeah.
I think it bonded you and me, obviously, but I think it did that for a lot of people.
I know it kind of gave us a connection. And where
Yeah.
normally, you were in a high school at Ganado and I was at a boarding school called Kindlechi. So we
Hmm.
really had no connection other than the church meeting. So,
Yeah. Which
but then we made
that
friends with Joe and we'd just do things together on the weekends. And I had
yeah.
a little RV and we'd do some weekend trips.
It was fun. It was fun. We
Yeah,
would
it was fun.
we would run into things like this. Do you see it? And we would buy it, you know. That's
Oh yeah.
obviously you know, do you see it?
I I can't make it out. Oh yeah, like a sand painting.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we would buy things like this, and you know, it just kind of reminds me of that time. So I have
yeah.
a little bit of a show and tell here, not much, but a little bit. I'll share as we go along. Um, I was thinking that why don't we, since we're you know focusing on the working with the indigenous, why don't we talk a little bit about the culture and the people? In my case,
Okay.
I have the Navajo experience mostly. You have Sioux as well. I had some Sioux students while I was in Ganado, some Lakota Sioux students, but majority of them were Navajo, as you know.
Yeah.
So, so just the indigenous in general, and then we'll maybe specify a little bit more with Navajo. But why don't we just talk about the culture and the people? Your take on that?
Okay, I'll start with the Sioux. When I when I went for my interview, I interviewed with the principal there was Dr. Khan, Assad Ali Khan, and he was from Pakistan. But I remember driving up to his house and he had little native kids playing in his yard and under a tree. And I remember watching the little kids, they didn't have any toys, but they're building roads with sticks and then their cars were little rocks. And they were just real creative and imaginative. And I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. Any other Anglo kids, they're out there with Hot Wheels and everything. But these kids had created their own playthings. I thought that was really, really neat.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just something that stuck out to me. And then meeting the school board, I was not used to working with Native Americans, but they're just welcoming and kind and ask appropriate questions, and I was impressed.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
but to move there was I had my son with me, Jason, and so I was a single dad, and to move there was real challenging because we had to rely on tribal housing. And so we shared a house with another teaching couple, husband and wife. And that was kind of hard. They were newlyweds. And anyway, it was just didn't work out very well. So then later that school year, Dr. Khan invited my son and I to move into his basement. So we rigged up a little bedroom in the basement, and then we took meals with Dr. Khan and his wife. And it was wonderful.
Yeah.
We
Well,
got like a double cultural experience. We were living with Pakistani Dr. Khan and his wife Amna, and then we were teaching on the Sioux reservation. It was a wonderful experience.
yeah,
And
things like that were just amazing. Yeah, go ahead.
and, and village life was a very small village,
Mhm.
and but certain people had, I know they had, they're like village leaders, and so
Mhm.
one of the main leaders was this priest named Father Perky. And
Mhm.
Father Perky, whatever he said was the law and the gospel and the truth. I mean, and he was just like the top guy. And then Dr. Khan was a school official, so he was revered. And then the school teachers, and just it was just really interesting the dynamics.
Yeah, you
And
bet. You bet.
uh, I was some of the discipline problems were interesting. Misbehavior, and and I put one up by her name, and I won't say her name, but uh, she says, "Give me another one." So I gave her another. Says, "Give me one more." And I just admired her spirit and spunk. Anyway,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah,
just
and yeah.
I kind of chuckled, and I think they got the idea that, it was kind of funny. So
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
always give them enough rope to hang themselves.
Yeah, no, I totally agree on the culture side of it and the people side of it. You know, they were very nice as far as I was concerned.
Yeah,
They were
yeah,
very, very nice to me and very welcoming. And you know, they knew that I was Iranian, but they knew I lived in Colorado, and they took all that in and just welcomed me. But I felt that I was accepted, and
yeah, yeah,
I felt that I was respected, I was accepted. And you know, if you're out there looking to start your teaching career, I think Gary and I would agree that the setting is highly important. You don't necessarily have to teach on the Navajo reservation, but I think the location you pick is rather important. Isn't that true, Gary?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Most of the time you're living in isolation. We had to travel about 40 miles to shop in Gallup, New Mexico,
Hmm.
when we lived on the Navajo. When I lived in Whitehorse, we had to travel. It was about 30 miles to Mobridge, South Dakota, where we
Yeah.
did our shopping. So you have to think of the isolation. And back then we didn't get any TV except PBS. And but later on we did get a satellite dish, and we did get some. I guess we more PBS channels really. But the isolation is really something you have to. I remember a friend of mine was teaching at another boarding, or no, it was a day school called
Hmm.
Hunters Point, and he had applied from New York City, and his only driving experience had been moving his mother's car from one side of the street to the other side on alternate parking days. He didn't have a driver's license, had never driven except for that. And here he was stuck out in the middle of the reservation with no
Hmm.
way to get to town. So,
Hmm.
yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. You know, I also found with the people and the culture, uh, people may not necessarily realize this, but what I saw anyway was that these Navajo students of mine and the people there, they were cowboys and cowgirls. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
they liked their cowboy hats, they liked their Stetson hats, they liked their
Yeah.
boots, they liked you know, wearing their jeans, they liked their belt buckles, you know, and wearing those bogo ties, and they loved going to rodeo. They loved country music,
Yeah.
and they also loved their trucks, and they loved their hunting and their fishing. I mean, they were just good old Western people. I mean,
Yeah,
what
exactly.
your thoughts on that?
Yeah, exactly. On the Navajo, same thing on the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe.
Hmm.
Um, the one thing I noticed, even the young kids, there's a lot of tobacco chewing, even among elementary age kids.
Hmm.
So that was kind of where on the Navajo there were some, but not quite to that extent.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I suppose influence around them, etc. But I found that they really loved the American culture,
Oh
and
yeah.
also you commented on this on one of our previous conversations. But they were highly patriotic. Now you're a veteran yourself. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I know every time I went to church at Fort Defiance. And I remember every time I drove by the cemetery, it was between Window Rock and Fort Defiance. And it was just covered with American flags.
Yeah.
And most of those were veterans, a lot of them were Marines and Army, and
Hmm.
but it was such a patriotic scene. The whole cemetery was just covered with American flags. And
Yeah, I
then
bet.
on Veterans Day, at the school I was at, we had it was a boarding school. Some of the kids lived close, so they would come, and I mean they're all dressed up, riding horses with flags. And I remember one of our counselors, Mr. I want to say Curtis, but it was Curtis Yazzie, and
Hmm.
he brought in his wagon and team, and it was just a real big deal, Veterans Day.
Yeah, you bet. You bet.
And
Yeah, I mean, that's something people may not realize, but they really are in love with the American culture. And, the other part is, they love their football, they love their volleyball, they love their baseball.
yeah,
They're very supportive of the sports in the community. They go off to college and they are supportive of that. We had some students who graduated and went to, like, BYU or ASU, places like that. And
mhm,
so it is a very, very proud culture. And I was so blessed to be around that because it rubs off. You talked about the outfits they used to wear and so on, the traditional outfits.
yeah, yeah,
What a wonderful, colorful, festive day that was
yeah,
when your eyes see that. It was just beautiful.
yeah. The other thing I was thinking, a lot of our leadership positions
Yeah,
were veterans, and we
yeah,
had one of the fellows on the school board. I'm trying to think what his name was. Anyway, he had been a code talker in World War II, and
yeah.
I can't think of his name right now, but he was just a really, really fabulous person to know.
Hmm.
Uh, and just a quality person.
Yeah,
So, and it was just a pleasure to have him on the school board.
yeah. Well, and I'm gonna kind of talk about the setting a little bit. Um, the I felt that the setting. Oh my goodness, it was like something out of a John Wayne movie. I mean, you have
Exactly.
Monument Valley and those red mesas and rocks, and when
Mm.
snow would settle on them, it was just such a beautiful scene to
Yeah.
see.
And
Um,
we were just 30 miles from Canyon de Chelly.
yeah, Canyon du Chelly itself,
Yeah.
fantastic. Of course,
Spider
that's
Rock.
Spider Rock.
Yeah.
I mean, all of that. We're close to Four Corners. We're close to Durango, Colorado. I
Yeah.
mean, all of that. It just went on and on and on. It was just a beautiful setting. And I remember in some of the trips we took, how blessed we were to be around so much with just
Yes. Yes.
really, in some cases, so little driving.
And we weren't that far from the Hopi Reservation, which
Yeah.
was like another completely different culture. I mean, it was night and day almost.
Yeah.
Uh, I was thinking in the classroom, at least at our school, this is we were K through 6, and we had Navajo grandmas
Hmm.
in the classroom, and they'd sit in the back of the classroom and teach the kids language, but they'd also be back there with a little loom and weaving.
Hmm.
And so I remember Grandma Brown was in my classroom, and they were just spectacular, just beautiful people. And
Yeah.
so
No.
she gave me a little rug she made when she was in our classroom, and she said, "Now, Mr. Nelson, I wove this while you were teaching, so your teaching is in this rug." And I thought, wow, what a beautiful thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was things like that. It was just beautiful. I think I've
Oh,
shared this story before, but I would walk down from my apartment, which was we called it Snob Hill in Ganado, because that's where all the so-called well-to-do lived. It was called Snob Hill. So I was blessed enough to live there in that apartment. 100J, that was the number. And I would walk from there to the post office, which wasn't that far. But in that walk, once in a while, I'd hear these bells, and the bells were of sheep.
yeah, yeah,
People just walking their sheep and so on.
yeah.
Gary, that was such a peaceful experience. It was just such a fantastic experience. It just made you feel peaceful.
Speaking of that, one of the
Yeah.
strangest experiences I had, and
Hmm.
it was just so unique to that culture, was, and especially in the winter time, you'd go out and step out of your door and just listen. And some nights you'd hear drums because there'd be ceremonies going on,
Yes.
and
Yes.
you could hear the drums. It
Yeah.
was just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It really had some kind of a beat to it that just
Yeah,
kind of got you going for some reason.
and the
But
chant.
yeah, and the chance, yeah, it was beautiful. It was beautiful, beautiful people, and One day after school, I was driving home, and the high school, of course, was about, a couple of 3 miles from my apartment.
Uh-huh.
As I was driving from the high school to the apartment, I saw some people riding their horses, and it was like you step back in time to see something out of a John Wayne movie. It was just wonderful.
I know.
But
Yeah.
but things like that, you just don't see
Yeah.
that everywhere you go. So,
Uh,
but anyway, that's the setting, and of course, there's much more we can talk about there. But
I
talk
remember.
about, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Well,
I was
talk
going to say,
about, yeah, go ahead.
one year we had a sister school in Kansas, in Manhattan, Kansas, uh, elementary school. Actually, we were with the school district. And so one year we took the train, the entire school, except for kindergarten, because they were just too young. But anyway, we took the grandmas, the teachers, all the students on the train. We got on at Gallup and took the train all the way to Topeka, Kansas. And
Mm-hmm.
then our sister schools met us with school buses and took us to Manhattan. And then we spent, I forget how many days there, then rode the train back. But it was just terrific. The grandmas brought their special flour called bluebird flour. That's
Yeah,
all they would use for their fry bread.
yeah,
So they brought many sacks of that so they could, it's gonna we're gonna be their guests, but we also wanted to show them the culture.
yeah,
And
you bet.
so it was a wonderful trip.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, the experiences just go on and on and on.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, like Lake Powell, and
yeah.
I
One
mean,
of my favorite things was Saturday morning going into Gallup to the flea market. I
oh
love
boy,
that.
yeah, yeah, that was wonderful.
You could
That
get
was,
the menudo soup.
and in Ganado, Kinlichi, where you were, we were like high desert, they call it.
Yeah, yeah.
The plateau, the high desert, with the mesas. But you're driving to Gallup, and in the middle of it, you can almost say to yourself, "Am I in Switzerland?" It's like you see these pine trees,
It's
and it,
beautiful.
it was
Yeah,
the Navajo Nation forest, and
yeah,
it was between Ganado and Gallup, and so you run into that topography.
yeah,
It was just phenomenal, the diversity of the topography. But
yeah.
talking about teaching, share that a little bit. How did you feel about the teaching experience with the indigenous?
One really stands out. This is when I was teaching at Whitehorse, and we were doing a science lesson on, I think, air pressure, I believe. And so one of the things was there are 7 different ways to inflate a balloon.
Mm-hmm.
You could use positive air pressure, negative air pressure, and so on. And anyway, we I think we had come up with 6 ways, and then we're on the 7th way, and I remember it just startled me. We had a girl that was special ed. Her name was Debbie, I remember. And Debbie came up with the solution for the 7th way to inflate a balloon. And
Wow.
it just was a remarkable. I thought
Yeah.
she just had that insight. And the other thing I remember about teaching, that was my first school. I was teaching grades 4 through 8 all in one room. And I remember starting the second year, and I'd learned so much from the kids the first year that I felt like I owed them an apology
Mhm.
because, you know, because they really taught me so much.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure. For sure. I felt that I learned probably way more than they did.
yeah, I know
But but that but
exactly.
that but that's one of the unique, wonderful things about teaching, because it
Yeah,
teaches you. And but I just loved teaching there. I just loved it. Um, I loved the kids. I loved the experience. I loved what setting we had. I loved the equipment that we had.
yeah,
We had everything we needed, and we were able to collaborate. We were able to get the job done on a daily basis. And there were times when, it was harder than other times, but by and large, it was phenomenal. Lot more positives than negatives. And
exactly.
one of the things that I used, which I know probably you and others did as well, was group projects. because the Navajo kids, they're much more community oriented than individual. And
Yes.
so we used a lot of strategies with, with group projects, and they loved it. And I have to say, just about every time they met the challenge and they exceeded it. So it was just wonderful to be a part of that. I remember one time we did a project that involved flags of different countries. And man, they just did such a phenomenal job with that. And we had them in the hallway, these flags, and it was almost like you were walking through UN or something. They had done such a great job. So, yeah, go ahead.
One of our favorites was, or at least one of my favorites, was in the fall of the year, and you usually would have to do it in August or early September. If you waited any later, it was just miserable. But we'd take seine nets to the river. We were on the Moro River, and it was a
Yeah.
real shallow river. So we'd take seine nets and catch miniature native fish like small bass, small bullheads, small catfish. And then we'd bring them back to the classroom and set up an aquarium. And so we'd set that up all year, and then we'd use that as a science project. So we'd use this dichotomous key to identify the fish.
Hmm.
And so we'd find out what they were and all that. And then we would have some fish like to feed on the surface, so you'd have surface food that floated. Then others like catfish like to feed on the bottom, so you'd have food that sinks. But anyway, the main thing I learned from that was on the river, the best kids on the river were the worst kids in the classroom. And so the nice thing was, because we had that experience on the river, if you're having a rough time during the school year, you could come up to them and say, "Hey, remember how great you were on the river that day and how much fun that was?" So you had that connection. It was really a wonderful project,
Yeah, yeah, to
and
draw
it
on
got
the
us
positive.
outside.
Yeah, no, for sure, to draw on the positive.
Yeah,
And I found for myself that they responded to the positive, which was
yeah, exactly.
amazing, which was amazing.
Yeah,
Very intelligent kids, very intelligent group of people. You mentioned this earlier about the grandmas, and I found for myself that the elders in the community would volunteer, would come in and do certain projects or maybe
yeah,
speak to the
yeah,
kids. I had several presenters that spoke to the kids and shared of their experience. So the teaching was just unbelievable. I loved it. It was
yeah.
back when Pearl Jam was making a sound, you know, in the 90s, and I was listening to Pearl Jam CDs, and then working with the kids. I mean, it kind of refreshed my memory about the timing. It was a wonderful time. Bill Clinton was president, by the way, back then. But
Oh, right.
yeah, it was just there was just such unity and such beautifulness about the whole thing that it's just, I could just go on and on about it. But
Yeah.
anyway, and the students themselves, like I said, they loved art. They loved being creative. I remember one time I taught a unit on Melville's book Moby Dick,
Oh, right.
and we got through it. We studied it, and we took a while to get there, but we got through it. At some point, the kids, they have phenomenal sense of humor. At some point, the kids told me, "Mr. Javadi, we're seasick." So you know, it was funny, but they
Yeah.
were so creative. And this is one of my kids that drew
Oh,
this. Can you see
that's
that?
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, this was one of millions. I mean, they were all so good with drawing and painting and
Yeah.
just the visual. They were so gifted at it, and so we used a lot of that with the kids to do the lessons. So the
Yeah.
project we had is they turned, and we did that with few books, but definitely with Moby Dick, we turned to a children's book. Are you there, Gary? Can you hear me?
Wait. Oh, let's see. Something happened.
Okay.
Oh, your video stopped. Okay. Huh. Your mic.
Find
Okay.
yourself there. Okay. yourself there. Okay. 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 Okay.
Okay. I'm trying to get back.
Mm-hmm.
Tap to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what I was going to say was we did something similar in the classroom. We used the Illustrated Classic books. And so
Yeah.
every other page had a picture. And so it was really great because the kids, a lot of them were basically English as a second language to some of them. And
Yeah.
so it was a good reinforcer, the visuals. But then after we finished the book, I'd have each kid choose one of the pages to draw because they did like drawing. And then
Yeah.
we'd reassemble the book, and then they could go through the book and tell the stories and look at each other's drawings. It was really a nice. It was. I wound up buying a lot of illustrated classics. Just they'd be on sale at Walmart for $1 a piece, and I'd buy
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
20 of them, so we'd have a whole set.
That was a wonderful project. I remember you telling me about it back then. Anyway, take your time, find it. I'll go get iJohn.
Okay,
We'll
I'm
be
gonna
editing
do. Go back into this again.
because I didn't touch anything. So I don't know.
Okay,
Just are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, let me get iJohn. I don't think I touched anything, but
No,
hang
I
on.
think I dropped it and
Yeah.
I did something. I don't know what I did, but okay.
Okay.
Let me see if
Okay.
I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I see you.
Yeah. Yeah. I see you.
Oh, okay. It's just a
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
small. It's down in the corner of the screen.
Yeah. I see you. And so,
Okay, well that's okay
so
then.
yeah. So we're good. I think the recording will be fine. We'll
Yeah.
do some editing. But anyway, yeah. No. I found that the creativity, actually, their creativity, made the lesson easier and made it better as a learning experience.
Exactly.
We were able to use it as a strategy. They knew it, we knew it. It was no big secret, and it was just a great way to learn. So I got a lot out of it. I think it actually aided my literature learning. But anyway, we kind of talked
I,
about this. Yeah, go ahead.
oh, one of the our favorite projects was this was like an economics class. So
Mm-hmm.
I had this little box that I'd go to Sam's Club in Flagstaff and stuck up on soda and pencils and candy bars and corn nuts, just things like that, because we were a boarding school and the kids didn't have access to all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I'd put that on a little cart, and then I had another cart with the cooler on it. So in the morning, I'd fill the cooler with soda and stuff, and then our cook in the kitchen let me fill it with ice from her ice chest or her ice maker. So then we just let it sit on ice all day. So at the end of the school day, we had ice cold pop. And so I would hire two kids to go. We'd count all the product before they left. And I said, no, when you come back, we'll recount the product and the money, and everything should come out the same. And
Mm-hmm.
so when everything came out the same, I said, okay, then you earned $1. So they would earn $1 for every time they came back and everything added up. And then the nice thing was because we wouldn't extend credit to kids because they would get in themselves in debt. But the staff, we'd extend credit to them. Then on payday, they'd go around and collect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so anyway,
Yeah.
we made tons of money. In fact, we were paying for other classes' field trips because we had so much cash on hand.
That's wonderful. That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the nice
Yeah.
thing is the kids learned what economics is. I would tell them what I paid for stuff, and then what we sold it for, and I said, now the difference is our profit. And so
Yeah.
these kids are selling it. I remember one, his name was Anthony, and he was kind of a stinker in the room. But when he would go out and sell stuff, and we came back and everything added up, it really affected his everything because his self-esteem improved. He was thinking better of himself. His behavior was better. It was really something how that worked.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
bet. By the way, your face is showing half, so bring the screen down a little bit.
oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, that's better. Yeah.
okay,
No, no. I totally agree with you. I mean, the ability to work like that, I have to say that they really pitched in quite a bit.
Yeah,
It really helped, and just knowing how it is that they worked really made the process much easier. But it was also not like they didn't want to be challenged either. I mean, they were, at least the kids I worked with, they were very eager to learn, and they wanted to be challenged. And I had a speech and debate team, as you know, and so we went to tournaments in Flagstaff, in Phoenix, Albuquerque, all the surrounding areas. And i have
uh-huh,
to say i have to say my kids held their own. They did really
nice.
well, and they learned from it, but they also excelled in so many areas. And
Well, that's,
so I found that they really loved learning at the same time. But then again, I think everybody knows that. So, well, Gary, I think we're gonna wrap it up with maybe just talking about walk in beauty. That's something that I heard in the Navajo Nation all the time. The Navajos really have this philosophy, don't they? That you walk in beauty.
I know. I'll never forget, they had a big billboard out at the by the high school where
Mm-hmm.
the intersection to Chinle. And that
Mm-hmm.
billboard said, "Buckle up, it's a Navajo tradition." And then they had the cradle board and then the seat belt. I thought that was such a great connection.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's I think that's part of that walk in beauty. The
Yeah.
respect, the
Oh, the
respect
other
for the
thing,
yeah.
when I first got to Kintlachi, one of the Navajo staff came in and said, "Now, Mr. Nelson, if you're going to teach our kids, you have to have one of these in your room." And she brought in a little cradle board. And it was so she says, "This is how we protect our children and we value our children. So I want you to have this to know that we love our children." And I thought, wow, what a wonderful thing. Just,
Hmm. Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. Well, Mr. Nelson, what a privilege to
yeah, it's
get to
been
talk
fun. Thank you.
to talk with you about the old days, and
Yeah.
what
We,
beautiful time and setting that was. I'll never forget it myself.
yeah.
So
And remember we had our common friend, Joe.
yes,
Joe,
God rest his soul. Yeah, he passed away, about 15 years ago?
yeah, Joe.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 Well,
Yeah. But we're
Gary,
fun together.
I'm
And
gonna
we had
bid you.
Bible studies. That was fun.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna bid you
Thank you.
farewell. Yeah, and
This is
we will
interesting. Thank you.
we will follow up at a later time. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye bye, Payman.
Bye bye.